This is not the first time Nigerian workers will be seeking for general upward review of wages and an increment in the national minimum wage.
And the same category of people are today exploiting Nigerians. We say no, and we say go.
In 1945, workers demanded for an increased wage. Within that same year, they staged the famous 45-day general strike for a cost of living allowance. During the Ernest Shonekan administration as interim president of Nigeria in 1993, the labor union won a 25% general wage increase through the Wage Consolidation Committee, but was immediately reduced to 15% by President Olusegun Obasanjo's administration. The year 2000 wage review agreement provided for a further 25% wage increase for workers with effect from May 1, 2001, and 15% wage increase with effect from May 1, 2002. But the new proposed minimum wage was not implemented. This follows an industrial dispute by the labor union and the government, when only 12.5% increase was approved rather than the agreed 35% in the year 2000. But it was finally signed in 2003, and later only a 15% increase was implemented by the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, in 2007. Labor unions had to fight to get federal government to agree to collective bargaining, even when the procedure was agreed on in previous negotiations. These days, organized labor unions find they have to protest yet again to bring government to agree to a new national minimum wage and a general upward review of wages. The leadership of the NLC argued that there were several reasons why there must be an upward review of workers' wages.
Our proposal of 56,000 is just 4,000 more than the figure we put for negotiation in December 2008, which was 52. This represents our awareness about the prevailing economic situation in the country, and therefore it should be seen that labor is very modest in its demand, looking at the economic challenges and the fact that our currency has been devaluated several times.
Between 2006 and 2007, workers' salaries were increased to 15%, but that of the political office holders were increased by over 800%. The process of monetizing and consolidating in-kind benefits which were hitherto not taxed has resulted in an escalation of the tax paid by workers. This has further depressed the real take-home pay of workers. All over the world, salary increases in the public sector is underlined by the principle of equity and the need to bridge social inequality in the face of widening economic and social gaps among citizens of a country. In sub-Saharan Africa, the country's minimum wage is said to be the lowest in Africa.
That law is incurably defective to such an extent that the provisions of this law are so obsolete.
The Labour Act of 2004 set the standard for the minimum amount of money a worker in Nigeria is supposed to take home. In 2004, the minimum wage was set to be 5,500 naira per month. The Labour Act of 2004 also has an exception that states that any establishment which employs less than 50 workers don't have to abide by the Nigerian minimum wage. In 2011, the National Minimum Wage Act of 2011 set the minimum wage to 18,000 naira per month and was signed into law by former President Goodluck Jonathan in 2011. President Muhammadu Buhari on the 27th of November inaugurates the Tripartite National Minimum Wage Committee at the Council Chambers Aso Rock Presidential Villa, Abuja, for renegotiation of the national minimum wage for Nigerian workers.
This committee, as a panel, is very exhaustive and will do the work in consonance with the ILO Professional Affairs, Social Dialogue and Collective Bargaining.
During the meeting, the President reveals that the last minimum wage instrument has expired, and it is in recognition of the need to ensure a fair and decent living wage that the federal government has put in motion necessary mechanisms.
You are all aware that during the period following the increase in petrol pump price in May 2016, a technical committee was established to examine and make recommendations to government on the measures to be adopted to cushion the envisaged painful effects of the increase on workers and Nigerian populace at large. During the deliberations of the technical committee, which comprised government and organized labor, the need for the review of the national minimum wage was highlighted, and recommendation to set up a committee to look into the level of minimum wage was made accordingly. I am glad that the recommendation is being acted upon today, and we can all acknowledge that this is in line with our democratic process.
President Muhammadu Buhari notes that the increase in petrol pump price in May 2016 made the presidency establish a technical committee to examine and make recommendations to government on the measures to be adopted to cushion the envisaged painful effects of the increase on workers and the Nigerian population at large.
Considering the scope of the membership of this new National Minimum Wage Committee, we can see that it is encompassing all stakeholders. My hope is that the outcome of the deliberations of the committee would be consensual and generally acceptable. I therefore urge you to amicably consider the issue of a national minimum wage and all matters that are ancillary to it with thoroughness and concern, not only for the welfare of our workforce, but the effect of the country's economy.